Jack Higgins says he doesn't like Adelaide, so what's your thoughts on Adelaide as you're heading over there for gathering?
I love Adelaide, always have. A little bit biased because I have family over there and I like golf and wine, so pretty hard to beat in that respect.
Do you feel like, you probably feel like the enemy every time you play away, but especially given it is Adelaide for gather round and it's the first game of the round?
I haven't really thought about it that way. We've thought more about how we played there in the past, and even through the COVID period, we were forced to play there quite a bit. And for whatever reason, we think the ground suits us, and we have some pretty good memories of good performances there. So, as I always say, like the circumstances of the week are unique. But you can draw on some of your previous experiences. It doesn't have much impact on the opposition. Now, clearly they're in really good form and one of the best teams of the competition at the moment. A month in, you can get a bit of a feel for sort of who's hot and who's not. Doesn't mean it's going to continue necessarily, but I wouldn't have thought it's the best time to get them. But therein lies a challenge. And if you look at it glass half full, it's a privilege to play what will be the biggest game of the round. The openings are gather round against the home team, big crowd, big occasion. Not every team gets the opportunity to play in those games, and we have regularly over the journey, and it's not something that we take lightly.
Jack Henry, the injury to him, how much of a blow is that, and how do you go about fixing it and managing for over the next 4 to 6 weeks?
Trust our medical team, who I think are the best in the business. Been in footy for a long time, and so I've had a reasonable opportunity to assess that. And the feedback is that he's going to miss weeks, but it's not a severe one. So it's a challenge for our stocks, because I think, like, on balance, I don't like rating them necessarily, but if you had to choose our best key defender, you'd choose him based on sort of recent form. So not many teams can cover that perfectly. But we do, as I said, post-game, feel like we're reasonably well placed, and if nothing else, it's given us a chance to put a bit more responsibility on Connor O'Sullivan's shoulders, and he's more than responded to that challenge. So that's positive for us, but then again, you look at the opposition, so their forward line has always been good, even when they weren't necessarily the best team in the comp. It's always been a strength of theirs, so we're looking forward to that part of the game, because we rate our backs, and I know they rate their forwards.
Chris, it's as simple as Blitzards. If they're Henry, you'll retain Reece Stanley as your number one ruck option.
It's a logical assumption to make in that part of the ground, but we have a few other considerations. Based on the decisions we made last week, as you know now, we had some late issues with Blitzards being crook, and Jack Henry was in a bit of doubt as well, and we made the preemptive call on Mitch Nevitt, who would have been in our 22 with a little bit of a foot issue. Our feedback is, with still 48 hours to go, that he's looking better, so it's not as obvious as it may seem. We've still got a few decisions that we need to make.
Just on Adelaide, they've obviously had a strong start to the season, 1-3, dropped that one by just a point last week. What do you make of them at this point in the season? I've
always rated them. I like their list. I shouldn't say that publicly. I like every team's list. I see the positives in every team. And it just doesn't surprise me to see them playing the way that they're playing. I think we'll consistently say that we have a lot of respect for every team, and when you think about it through the lens of what can they do at their best, every game becomes pretty daunting, and Adelaide are certainly in that category, where if you let them have the game on their terms, you'll likely get beaten. But again, that doesn't feel like it's that different for us. It's not as if we're having games where we think, we'll just go and play this week and it won't matter too much. Every week requires a lot of thought, at least in the way we think about things. It requires a lot of thought into how the opposition play and what they look like if you let them play that way. So a really big challenge, but one we're looking forward to. And we're really confident in our capability as well. So that's not just because we think we understand them or because we played the ground well, but we've got a lot of confidence in what we can do.
There's often talk about midfields going up against the other midfield. Is it Adelaide's forward line that not necessarily concerns you the most, but maybe is keeping you up at night, so to speak, the three-headed monster?
Yeah, but it's those things, and one of the things I love about our game, it's different to, if you use the NFL as an example where your offence has no bearing really on your defence. Our game's so interrelated, and that's the way we think about the way that, you know, our game, how we should play. But it's also, when you talk about letting the opposition play their way, if their mids are able to get on top, their forwards come into the game. It's unlikely that their forwards are going to dominate if their midfield has a bad day. So the logical extension of that is, let's just make sure we beat their midfield. Easier said than done. And there are multiple ways to sort of think about, going about getting on top of their midfield. The ultra defensive mode is not something that they've chosen to go with early in the year, and it's worked for them. And I only really bring it up to say that it'll be an interesting tactical battle, this one, because you could come up with 3 or 4 sort of different priorities that would all be logical in their own right, but you can't do them all at once. So I find it difficult to separate who's more important, Dawson and Rankine and Crouch and O'Brien, Saligo, or their forward line, who are rightly getting the plaudits that they deserve at the moment.
Would you consider a tag for Jordan Dawson or Isaac Rankine?
Yep. But you could go through a list and say, would you consider something? And I'd likely say yes. Whether we do it or not, it's not something we talk about publicly. But, I mean, if the question is, where do you rank those guys in the competition as midfielders? Pretty high, if not right at the top.
Chris, somebody would have to make way, but Ollie Wiltshire's body of work was added to again last week. Is he becoming very hard to ignore? He
is, yeah. I'd encourage you to keep asking. But also look at it through the lens of who's currently in our forward line. Now, it's not to say that Ollie's pigeonholed just as a forward. We think he's got the capacity to play up the ground as well. But yeah, he's doing everything that he can do. I just want to be a little bit cautious of building him up too much. I think it's very likely, if he keeps going the way he is, he'll get his chance. But putting undue pressure on guys who are still early in their career, it's not fair on them when they actually do come in, because they actually deserve the chance to come in and find their way at AFL footy before you expect them to be world beaters. But long term, he's got, from what we can see, the capacity to be a really good AFL player.
George Stevens doing similar. You've seen, liking what you've seen through the first month?
Yeah, and yes, he's been really good. We like what we see, and not every player has the opportunity to impress in this manner. But George has something a bit different to the rest of our midfielders, which is going to work in his favour, I suspect. He's a really big, strong inside mid who can run. And again, I just said don't put pressure on them. I'm going to do it. And he's an elite kick. So when he gets his chance at AFL footy, you'll see the big, strong, contested work, but he's a beautiful user of the ball. So, we're excited about his development.
What do you make, just a bit more broadly, on the idea of players showing really visible frustration on the field after a game? So Christian Petrarca was really upset after the Melbourne, after the loss here last week, and I think some former players have said they would prefer that sort of stuff to be kept inside the change rooms. Have times changed with that sort of stuff?
I mean, the former players are having a bad couple of weeks, aren't they? I mean, I don't keep up with all of it, but I guess we might err a little bit in this overall philosophy occasionally, but we're aspiring to say, be yourself. Now, if being yourself sort of veers into putting more pressure on your club or your teammates, or yourself for that matter, then maybe you sort of need to think about your behaviour. But God, we as an industry, we want it every way, don't we? Show more emotion, show less, be yourself, put on a facade. Which one is it? I think when in doubt, if you feel it, within reason, what's wrong with showing it? What's their point? I haven't heard it really.
Just that sort of emotion, don't show, I think one of the lines was don't show the opposition any weakness, don't show them any chinks in the armour.
So I use this analogy a fair bit, and I probably shouldn't talk about this for the whole world necessarily, but I never thought when Roger Federer was effusive in his praise of Nadal after losing a Grand Slam final that he was going to go any easier on him next time they played. And I feel the same way about Petrarca. I don't think, oh yes, he's a weakling, so next time we're going to kill him. I suspect it will be the opposite, because is a passionate guy who really cares.
How important will Patrick Dangerfield be this weekend? He's a former Adelaide player, knows Adelaide really well, kicked 3 goals last game. How important is he this weekend?
Well, he's in the conversation for our most important player, and it's a debate that we have all the time around whether we play him sort of midfield and forward. I don't enjoy it, but I respect the fact that there's some theatre around it being his old team. It was a long time ago now, probably 10 years or so. He plays the ground well as we do, and enjoys the big occasion. So against good teams, so I'd sort of check all 3 of those boxes. My guess is that everyone's excited about this game because it's on the big stage, but it's the best players in the best teams, and Adelaide are one of those at the moment that really get excited. So probably ramps up the challenge a little bit more, and that I think that energises Pat.
I know he's a professional athlete, it's probably expected of him, but how pleased have you been with Reece Stanley's perseverance? Obviously, a bit of an emergency for the past couple of weeks, and then finally gets his chance and really showed out against one of the best ruckmen in Max Gorn last week. Yeah, well, I'm really impressed with Reece. Like Mitch Duncan's in that category as well, where we went into this year with a plan, completely understanding that there may well be some frustration throughout the year, but that's easy to sort of talk about and be a little bit prepared for, but in the moment it's a lot harder than you think, in my experience. So they've been great. But the other thing that I would highlight is our VFL program and our academy program that we really place a high importance on, have been better for having those guys around. So it hasn't just been that their perseverance has been admirable, it's the way that they've invested in that program, knowing that they can do 2 things at once: help that program, help those younger guys come through, but also be ready when their opportunity inevitably comes. We just don't know. We say it's inevitable, we just don't know exactly when it's going to be. So for Reece it was late in the piece last game, and we thought he stood up really well, I agree.
Adelaide has voiced their frustration over the Isaac Rankin non-call. Do you feel or suspect that there might be some favourable umpiring coming their way on Thursday night?
Look, I think there's such a thing as human nature, and I think the stats over the journey do. The objective stats are irrefutable. The home team tends to have an advantage, and that's, if you sort of think through human nature, it's logical. So you always go in with that sort of, I think, base case. But I also think you can override human nature to an extent and know that is a possibility this week. And I think there's I think the umpires are they're smart guys, and the department are smart, and they can sort of separate what's real and what's not. And I think the reality for them and for the other 17 clubs in the competition, regularly there are mistakes, umpiring mistakes, late in games that if you isolate them, cost teams the game. This is not a unique situation. What's rare is that the the AFL voluntarily come out and clarify it. Now, most of the time that clarification happens behind closed doors, but I would say it happens a lot. I'm going to say at least a few times a game. Especially in close games, you look back, and they may not be egregious errors, but they're errors nonetheless. Well, that's the nature of our game. Like the idea that this is a remarkable situation because a mistake was made in a kind of close call, like a 50-50, that is laughable. Like those sort of errors, when you get the benefit of slow motion replays and you say, okay, based on what we can see now, that's an error. That happens a lot. This is not. I don't think you should isolate it and say, hey, this is one of those ultra rare examples where a team was cost a game. So I don't understand the overreaction from the AFL personally.
So do you think they shouldn't have clarified it publicly?
Well, I think they've got a choice. They can be completely transparent and clarify every single mistake so everyone knows, or don't do it at all. But when you cherry pick examples because there's public pressure, I think that's an error. And I think what quite rightly happens is the aggrieved party, it's a bit like Richmond being the victim, if you like, of the change in interpretation of pushing into a marking contest. It's like, well, how has that helped us? How's that helped our number 1 draft pick? And you come out and say, hey guys, we probably cost you a little bit with a decision, which by the way happens regularly. And Adelaide go, well, so what? All that matters is you fix it this week. I'd prefer they waited a week before they fix it. or don't fix it at all, because you can't.
I think their view is they'll only clarify things now that happen late in games and have a material impact on the outcome of the game. I think that's their view currently.
Well, the behavioural economists would have a field day with that, because when does it matter when in the game that it costs you? Like that is, all it is caving into public pressure. Now, 9.5 times out of 10, we should support the AFL in their decision making, and I think they're trying to do the right thing here. I just disagree with it. It doesn't make me right. But if you think through it logically, we're only going to clarify the ones that happen late in games because they're the only ones that influence the outcome of the game. Well, that's not true. I'll give you an example. We gave up the first goal against St Kilda, which was a clear push in the back, not paid. Is that any different to if it was in the last 30 seconds of the game? You decide, right?
Thanks, Gary.
Unless there's something really important, yeah.
Just finally, because we have got your free training, so we can't ask you obviously about everyone on the, who'll be on the track, but is there anyone else that we shouldn't speculate on if they're on line of duties or not out there today? You know?
No, everyone bar Jack Henry that played last week, we're really confident will be available, unless I'm missing something. And then there are a couple of others. A little bit of a strange preparation for us because our VFL doesn't play, so, and there's obviously a long break anyway between Thursday night and then Easter Monday, so a bit of an unusual week, but I think in terms of our selection, I don't think there'll be any curveballs.